There's Debo, taking up the heavy stuff. All right, don't drop it, don't drop it.
This is Debbie Dorian, a young college student living her bright, promising life in the quiet city of Fresno, where college students stroll campus paths and neighbors trust one another.
Go ahead, ma'am. My husband just called and went to his daughter's apartment. She didn't show, and he found her dead in her apartment. Okay, tell me what your daughter's name is. Her name is Debbie Dorian.
In August 1996, everything changed. What began as an ordinary summer took a dark and disturbing turn, shaking a quiet community to its core.
According to police, Debbie's dad found her body in her bedroom early this morning.
There is some very evil, demented predator out there.
We didn't know if, when, and where he was going to strike again.
In August 1996, Debbie Dorian had just graduated from California State University of Fresno and was living alone in the North Creek apartment complex, 4 to 5 miles north of campus. She was working toward a future in economics, considering graduate school and paths inspired by her father, Peter Dorian. The area, largely populated by college students, was considered safe and rarely touched by violent crime. On Thursday, August 22nd, Debbie was expected to arrive at her father's home around 7 a.m. When she never showed up, Peter drove to her apartment. There was no answer at the door, and when he tried the handle, it opened, an immediate red flag. Debbie was known to be extremely careful about her personal safety, and in that moment, Peter knew something was terribly wrong. Inside the apartment, Peter moved from room to room, first the living area, then the dining space and kitchen, but Debbie was nowhere in sight. The television was still on, its sound filling the silence, and he called out her name again and again, receiving no answer. Growing more alarmed, he walked toward the back of the apartment and into the bedroom.
And he found the most horrific sight that any parent could encounter.
Debbie lay on the carpeted floor of her bedroom, on her side, motionless. She was partially unclothed, naked from the waist down, her shirt pushed up. Her ankles were bound with duct tape, her hands taped tightly behind her back. Even worse, duct tape completely covered her head, stretching from the top of her skull down to her jaw, obscuring her face and making it immediately clear she could not have breathed. For a brief moment, Peter instinctively thought about pulling the tape away, but he quickly realized it was already too late. Overcome with shock and terror, he ran to the phone inside the apartment to call for help, knowing his daughter was gone. In shock and panic, he first called his wife, Debbie's stepmother, who then contacted 911.
Go ahead, ma'am. My husband just called and went to his daughter's apartment. She didn't show, and he found her dead in her apartment. Okay, tell me what your daughter's name is. Her name is Debbie Dorian.
Moments later, Peter made another devastating call to Debbie's mother, Sarah Lovin, delivering the news that would shatter her family forever.
I ran screaming through the house. No, 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 no. And that's all I could say was no, no, no.
The discovery of her body quickly drew investigators, law enforcement, and concerned residents to the scene. Police found no signs of forced entry and no major disturbance inside the apartment, suggesting the attacker either had been led inside or had gained control immediately upon contact. Investigators immediately sensed this was not a random act. The way Debbie had been restrained pointed to a deliberate, controlled offender. The coroner later confirmed she died from suffocation, her head sealed with duct tape.
There was semen found on the victim, and then there was saliva sample that was found, and they came from the same source. They were the same individual.
That DNA profile was entered into the national database, but it produced no match. Despite having critical forensic evidence, investigators had no suspect to tie it to, and the case slipped into the growing silence of an unsolved homicide, marked by dead ends, frustration, and the lingering presence of a killer with no name. Debbie Dorian's murder sent shockwaves through Fresno, especially around the Fresno State campus. Students grieved while suddenly questioning their own safety, and a city that saw itself as close-knit and protected was forced to confront a harsher reality. Investigators began by examining Debbie Dorian's lifestyle and reconstructing her final days.
Debbie was killed between roughly 12 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon on August the 20th, 1996.
A neighbor reported seeing an unfamiliar white male approach Debbie's door and briefly speak with her, but the man was never identified and only a general description was available. With no signs of forced entry, detectives focused on men known to Debbie, including her longtime boyfriend, John Thomas.
As of August 1996, we've been dating approximately 2.5 years. It's hard to hear things said about this person that you love that's been murdered.
As expected, he became an early person of interest. John was interviewed and provided a DNA sample voluntarily, but records confirmed he had been working on a wildfire in Northern California at the time of the murder. His DNA did not match the evidence, and he was eliminated as a suspect. As John Thomas continued cooperating with investigators, he revealed a critical detail. In the weeks before her murder, Debbie had been urgently searching for a roommate.
I think she was getting desperate. She needed to get some finances so that she could pay her bills. She needed somebody soon.
She had placed ads and posted flyers around Fresno State, and investigators later found a list of prospective roommates on her dining room table. That list quickly became a list of persons of interest. One name stood out: Alvin. After learning of Debbie's murder, he contacted police himself, saying he had met her, paid a deposit, and signed an agreement to rent the room, though he never received a key. While he did not match the neighbor's description of the white male seen at Debbie's door, a background check revealed he was a registered sex offender, an alarming detail given the nature of the crime.
What did you do when you went there? I locked the door. She invited me in. What time was it that you got there? Between 6 and 7.
Alvin also told investigators that he had returned to the apartment after Debbie stopped responding, worried about the money he had given her. He admitted trying the doorknob and finding the door unlocked.
Wednesday night, I knocked the door. Nobody answered. The blinds were open. The TV was on from what I could see on the wall. And I knocked the door. Nobody answered. I tried the door. Like 4 times, the door was unlocked.
He claimed he never went inside. The detail struck detectives as unusual. When questioned about his alibi, Alvin pointed to another name, Maurice, adding yet another uncertain lead to an already tangled investigation. Alvin and Maurice Dixon, friends and co-workers at grocery outlet, soon became central to the investigation. Maurice, a 28-year-old Army veteran with no criminal record, often drove Alvin to Debbie's apartment and waited nearby. He maintained that he never met Debbie, never entered her home, and only saw her face for the first time later on the news.
So you've never seen this girl, don't know what she looks like, never talked to her?
No, not from all this started happening at first. I never seen her or just heard her voice on the phone.
During questioning, Maurice unexpectedly mentioned that he had bought 2 rolls of duct tape to tie off the ends of a rope for his punching bag at home. This volunteered detail raised suspicions since investigators had not told him they were focused on duct tape or bondage-related evidence.
What made you mention that? Somebody mentioned duct tape or something like that. Do you have any duct tape or do you know anything about duct tape or something?
When was that?
That was when I first came to question.
A search of Maurice's home confirmed duct tape on his punching bag, but it did not match the tape used on Debbie's body. DNA testing excluded Alvin as a contributor, clearing him as a suspect. However, Maurice's DNA could not be excluded, contradicting his claim that he had never entered Debbie's apartment. Maurice continued to deny any involvement, but the evidence at the time led to his arrest. He was publicly taken into custody and charged with Debbie's murder.
I think it's great. Hopefully it's the right person.
Though investigators soon uncovered a shocking new development that would change everything. As DNA technology advanced, the evidence was retested. The original analysis had examined just 6 genetic markers, but a new test using 13 markers quickly followed. The results were clear. The DNA from Debbie Dorian's crime scene did not match Maurice Dixon. After just over 2 weeks in custody, he was cleared, the charges were dropped, and he was released.
Maurice Dixon had been in custody for a little more than 2 weeks. Tonight, he is free, and the investigation into the Debbie Dorian murder case returns to square one.
After Debbie's murder, a $60,000 reward was offered for information. Her mother Sarah pushed forward, securing a promise from investigator Vince Zavala, for whom the case became deeply personal.
I made a commitment to her. I would never quit. And she asked me, well, what about when you retire? I says, well, I won't retire. I won't retire until I solve it.
Zavala and the Fresno police continued tirelessly, pursuing every lead, determined to uncover the truth. For years, the investigation into Debbie Dorian's murder remained focused on Fresno with no clear leads. Then, a breakthrough came when the DNA profile from her case entered into the National CODIS database, matched one from a 1999 essay in Visalia, about an hour south.
Over the period of the next 3 years, several other similar crimes occurred in Visalia. And I believe these crimes were committed by the same suspect.
All involving a white male in his 30s, around 5'6" to 6 feet tall, medium build, who threatened victims at gunpoint while hiding his face with a bandana or hoodie. One of those victims was Beth. She was 19 years old, newly independent, and had moved to California's Central Valley to pursue her dream of working with horses. One night, as she rode her bike home from work,
and I saw a gentleman pull out of a street. It was 10:30 at night. There was nobody on the road. He grabbed my handlebars and had a gun.
He grabbed her handlebars and threatened her with a gun, forcing her to comply. Beth was then sexually assaulted but managed to survive. Within minutes of reaching her apartment, police were there, responding to her call for help. Later, Beth led investigators to the exact location of the assault, allowing them to recover critical DNA evidence from the scene. Years later, Beth would learn that the man who assaulted her was also responsible for the murder of Debbie Dorian. That realization reshaped everything. What had happened to Debbie could have happened to any of them. In the moments after her attack, Beth had been driven by a single, unshakable promise to herself.
I'm gonna get you. You're not gonna get away with it.
Over the next 3 years, additional women were attacked in Visalia, all under strikingly similar circumstances. It was only after several of these assaults that investigators recognized a clear pattern and realized they were hunting the same offender. The DNA recovered from Beth's case was entered into the National CODIS database and compared against other crimes. That search produced a critical case-to-case hit. The same DNA found at the scene of Debbie Dorian's murder was now linked to the Visalia assaults. For the first time since Debbie's death, investigators knew the killer had been operating in Visalia. In 2018, the cold case gained new momentum after a breakthrough arrest showcased the power of genetic genealogy technology. This sparked a critical question. How could the same method be used in Debbie Dorian's murder? With help from the Sacramento County DA's office, Fresno detectives were given a blueprint to move forward. Using this new technique, they built a family tree of the unknown suspect. And within a week, a promising lead emerged and matched perfectly.
And I'm looking at the photograph of the suspect. I'm like, this is our guy. This really is.
They were convinced they had finally found the offender. Using genetic genealogy, investigators identified a suspect, Nicky Dwayne Stain. On the surface, he was an ordinary family man with steady work, no criminal record, and active in the community.
On the surface, he did seem like, your next door neighbor.
Detectives believed this normal life helped him stay under the radar. To confirm, Vince and his partner staged a covert operation to collect DNA without tipping off the suspect. Disguised as sanitation workers, they replaced his trash cans with empty ones, waiting for him to discard items. Among the trash, they recovered used razor blades likely carrying his DNA. 2 weeks later, the test results came back. The DNA matched.
Nicky Stain was our 147th individual who we obtained a DNA sample from for comparison, and he was the match.
At the Visalia Mall, detectives went to Nicky Stain's workplace to question him. They asked if he knew Debbie Dorian or had ever committed violence against anyone.
Her name was Debbie Dorian. She was found murdered. You didn't kill her, did you?
No.
but Stain denied any connection and refused to provide a DNA sample, saying he wasn't sure he wanted to do that. The interview seemed to be ending when, unexpectedly, Stain stopped, looked Vince in the eye, and said,
Yeah, I hope you find him.
I hope we do catch the guy, and thank you. Have a good day.
As Stain prepared to leave, the arrest team, waiting nearby, moved quickly. When he re-entered the mall, they stepped in and arrested him within seconds, handcuffing him on the spot.
Now, Buster. Nicky Stain. Hey. Put your hands behind your back.
Turn around, man.
He was charged with SA and Visalia linked to the Debbie Dorian case. Vince called Sarah Dorian immediately to share the long-awaited news, and she spread the word to friends and family. After years of searching, they finally had their suspect in custody. After Nicky Stain's arrest for the Visalia assaults, detectives brought him in for questioning, expecting resistance. But to their surprise, he was unusually forthcoming. From the start, Stain admitted knowing why he was there. He confessed to approaching women on the street and coercing them into unwanted intimate acts. When detectives detailed each assault, he hesitated but often acknowledged the possibility that it was him.
That might have happened. I think that one happened. I say that sounds like me, but I don't think that was me.
His vague responses raised serious red flags. He described wearing a hoodie during the attacks, matching victim descriptions. Stain also revealed a history of sexual addiction and promiscuity, boasting about multiple prostitutes he'd been involved with since high school.
If you have my phone, you'll be able to see that because it has like 400 videos on it of probably 100 different women.
He seemed oddly proud of this lifestyle and didn't view hiring escorts or having sugar babes as wrong. He even talked about his bedroom, saying it looked like something out of 50 Shades of Grey. Throughout the interview, his candidness and disturbing details gave investigators chilling insights into the man behind the crimes, proving he was anything but the guy next door. During the search of Nicky Stain's home, police found silk robes and sex toys in his closet. Investigators also uncovered that he was running an Airbnb operation, renting rooms to younger women whom he claimed to provide for. They discovered a fake Facebook profile where he called himself Nick Steele, claiming to be chairman of a Fortune 500 company, his online alter ego, more fantasy than reality. He posted videos showing off his nightlife.
Okay, I'm going out tonight.
Not necessarily to bait women, but to flaunt his lifestyle and attract attention. A disturbing find was a hidden wall plug camera in a roommate's bathroom linked to a younger female, leading to voyeurism and a misdemeanor peeping Tom charge. Though Stain pleaded not guilty and the charge was eventually dropped. His sexual deviances were clear, but his defense argued that those behaviors don't prove guilt in murder. Interestingly, while assaults and voyeurism occurred, the violence seemed to de-escalate over time. When confronted about Debbie Dorian during interrogation, Stain initially denied knowing her but later admitted they had met several times for consensual intimate interactions.
So, to be honest with you, she was, I picked her up in Fresno there on the street there at one time. After I dropped her off, I thought that was going to be the last time I seen of her.
He claimed that she came to his workplace multiple times asking for intimate encounters. Prosecutors disputed this claim, and the defense team prepared to take the case to court.
Nicky Dwayne Stain is the primary suspect in the rape and murder of Debbie Dorian.
The courtroom revealed a stark contrast between the prosecution and the defense teams, each firmly representing their side. Among the witnesses was a neighbor who provided crucial testimony, describing seeing a white male matching Nicky Stain's description knocking on Debbie's door on the day she was murdered. The encounter wasn't confrontational, and the neighbor said Debbie had let the man inside, an account that became a pivotal piece of the case. Among the evidence was a list found on Debbie's kitchen table, containing names of potential roommates. One entry, scratched out but still visible, included Stain's name along with a note that read, "Call Tuesday 12 o'clock." Investigators believe that Stain contacted Debbie to arrange a visit to the apartment, was invited inside, and entered her home that day, an encounter that would become central to the case. Two of the Visalia essays also testified at the hearing. When Beth saw Nikki Stain in the courtroom, it was the eyes and the voice that struck her immediately, things you'd never forget, especially the voice. Hearing him speak, she thought,
That's him. Holy crap, that's him.
Prosecutors revealed a crucial piece of evidence, recorded phone calls Nikki Stain made from Tulare County Jail. In these monitored conversations with family, Stain spoke openly, acknowledging his past wrongdoings and expressing acceptance of his fate, implying he expected to spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Are you innocent of any of those crimes?
No, not really, Mom. I was kind of like involved in all of them.
Though the defense maintained that he never admitted to Debbie Dorian's murder during police questioning. The defense challenged parts of the investigation, but prosecutors maintained that the DNA evidence was clear. Only Debbie Dorian's and Nikki Stain's DNA were found at the crime scene. The judge ruled there was enough evidence for the case to go to trial, and prosecutors announced they would seek the death penalty. Just weeks later, Stain agreed to a plea deal, pleading guilty to murder in exchange for life without parole and the dismissal of the SA charges. Debbie's mother opposed it, believing Stain should be held accountable for every crime. Nikki Stain ultimately chose to plead guilty to all charges, bringing the case to an end without a trial.
You unlawfully and with malice aforethought committed murder against Deborah, Sarah, and Dorian. Mr. Stain, how do you plead? Guilty.
In exchange, prosecutors withdrew the death penalty, and Stain was formally convicted of the murder of Deborah Sarah Dorian. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Debbie was more than a victim. She was a real person, a beautiful child who experienced life's joys and struggles. Her family had endured nearly 29 years of unanswered questions, years marked by waiting, hoping, grieving, and refusing to let her name be forgotten, until justice finally arrived, closing a chapter that had remained painfully open for almost 3 decades. For Vince Zavala and everyone who refused to give up, this was more than a case closed. It was a promise kept. A promise that no victim would be forgotten, no crime left unsolved, and no abuser allowed to escape justice. As Nikki Stain faced the consequence of his actions, a community began to heal. Debbie's memory lives on, not just as a victim, but as a shining light of strength, love, and the enduring power of truth. This is a story of justice delayed but never denied. A story of hope rising from darkness, reminding us all that no matter how long it takes, the truth will find its way and healing will follow.